Recently, the world saw the deaths of entertainers Ozzy Osbourne, Hulk Hogan, and Tom Lehrer. I'll be giving my satanic takes on them and on idols in general. Also addressing this absurd and annoying non-argument we get from Christian trolls trying to equate M.A.G.A with the hierarchy title of M.A.G.A.
Well, it's not Satan worship, it's Satanism. It's embracing the life-enriching things which have traditionally been given the devil's name. Pride, lust, earthly success, rational self-interest, atheism, humor, nonconformity, science, a passion for living, being selective about whom we love. We don't see these as shameful sins, but empowering ideals. And we also recognize the psychological power and fun of symbolism and aesthetics, so we utilize Satan as mythology's most fitting mascot for what we're about.
Satansplain. Satanic Talk with Church of Satan Magister Bill M.
Magister Bill M here with Satansplain. This is another one of those episodes where I'll find myself making a lot of side rants before I get to my points. So as usual, I have little chapter breaks if you need to skip or re-listen to something. Well, let's get started. Satansplain is a show where I talk about what Satanism is. Unfortunately, we live in a world where too many people say that Satanism is something that it's really not. If you're somebody interested in Satanism enough to want to tune into a show named Satansplain, then I'm sure you've already run into plenty of misinformation from those sorts of willfully ignorant people out there. But, there's a psychological phenomenon called Pareidolia. And this is often described as the tendency to perceive a specific, often meaningful image in a random or ambiguous visual pattern. So sometimes, for example, we'll look up and we'll see a cloud in the sky and say, oh, that cloud is kind of shaped like a turtle. It's just something the human mind does as a natural byproduct of the way the human brain evolved to find patterns or similarities in things. And this is especially true when it comes to seeing faces and things, like a couple of scratches on the wall that are laid out in a way somehow resemble a couple of eyes and a mouth, let's say. There was a famous photo from Mars that people said looked like a human face, but when you looked at the same rock formation at a different angle or saw clearer photographs of the same hill, it didn't look like a face at all. And when you're done listening to Satansplain, you might want to look up Michael Shermer. He's an author and also gave a great TED Talk you can find online on why people believe weird things. But to quote one of my all-time favorite lines from a movie, this is one from the 1998 sci-fi film Pi. The quote is, "When your mind becomes obsessed with anything, you filter all else out and see that thing everywhere you look." Now, I could tie that concept back to Satanism with talk about greater magic and so on, but that's not where I'm going with that. I did, however, talk about some of that in a past episode number 78 of Satansplain. No, what I'm trying to get at here is that there is another kind of pareidolia which is driven by obsession. When people are so obsessed with some idea, they quote-unquote see that thing everywhere. You'll see people, for example, who say, well, I'm convinced that the world is racist and racism is everywhere, and I walked out to my car this morning and it was covered in green dust. This was obviously a hate crime against me because I'm a black woman. And it turns out that no, it wasn't a hate crime. It was just pollen that got stuck to your car with the rain, just like all the other cars on the street. And that wasn't a fictional example. That was actually a true news story. It was a mayor from South Carolina claiming that back in 2017. And we saw similar stories in the years that followed, with like a knotted rope being seen as a hate crime for supposedly resembling a hangman's noose. And there are plenty of other examples of things that are obsessed with. People are obsessed with them, and thus they see them everywhere they look. Oh, I'm convinced this is part of the gay agenda because, look, it's a rainbow. Or some people say, oh, I'm convinced the Jews are at the root of everything bad. And if I keep looking at names of all these people involved in this movie or this food I don't like, I'll eventually find a Jewish name, and this confirms it. Or even people saying things like, oh, the number 27 is bad for me because all these bad things that happen are associated with the number 27. And like I got divorced on the 27th of the month, and I sprained my ankle on February 27th. That's a 2-7. Or if I add these things that I got involved in and subtract this, I get the number 27, and so on and so on. Now, of course, we've seen Christians play this same game with Satan, or what they call Satanism. We saw that especially in the 1980s during the Satanic Panic. You would see people saying, well, this teenager killed himself, so it was probably some kind of satanic influence. Oh, he played Dungeons and Dragons? Oh, well, that explains it. Or we would hear things like, oh, does this band play heavy metal? Well, they must be satanic. Yeah, they have this song with devil in the title, so there you go. Oh, wait, this album doesn't have any devil lyrics? Well, let's try playing the record backwards, and I bet we can hear something that sounds like Satan or demon or devil or evil. What is this band, Blue Oyster Cult? They have some strange symbol on their covers. Iron Maiden does too. Well, they must be satanic symbols. And you know, look, in the UPC barcode of the album, there are 3 6s. Okay, well, whatever their obsession is, whether a person's obsession in this case is the devil or gay people or Jewish people or the number 27, do any of these really obsessive people ever stop and apply any kind of critical thinking or the scientific method to what they're exploring? Do they ever stop and realize, well, wait a minute, maybe, this rainbow thing, maybe it's just a stack of Post-it notes at the office. It's just office supplies and it's not a gay thing. Or do they ever think, well, gee, I guess I can get the number 27 if I do the same kind of math on these things I like. And I guess most bad things happen to me they don't always happen with 27. At least, like here was a case with 28. Here was a case that happened with 5. No, they don't do anything like that. These kinds of people who, are obsessed and see these things they're obsessed with everywhere. No, they throw critical thinking out the window. And I guess it's because the thrill of connecting dots that aren't connected is just too good for some people to pass up. Science is examining data and trying to come up with a conclusion. These people start with a conclusion and selectively look for data to support that. That's pretty much what, the conspiracy theory mindset comes down to, I'd say. But there's an even bigger stupidity to all of this, I would say, and that is that people who think finding a connection is, in and of itself, some kind of argument. They get so obsessed with finding a connection and calling it a victory that they never stop and realize that what they're implying really doesn't make any sense when you think it through. Going back to the Satanic Panic examples, one of the news stories that came out kind of in the tail end of the Satanic Panic was the Judas Priest trials. So if you're not familiar with this, in I think it was 1990, there was a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old who committed suicide, and the families filed a lawsuit against the band Judas Priest, claiming that there were subliminal messages in some of Judas Priest's music, and the 2 young men listened to Judas Priest, and they got the messages, and that's why they killed themselves. Actually, one failed to kill himself and ended up just disfiguring his own head, but I digress. But people at the time were asking, oh, is that true? Are there lyrics or backwards messages on the album? Now, comedian Bill Hicks at the time had a great stand-up routine, and he asked a much more important question, which is, what band wants his audience dead? And he pointed out the inherent absurdity of a band wanting to plant messages into their albums in the first place to make their fans kill themselves. Also, why would a record company do that? If your goal is to sell records, why would you want your clientele to kill themselves? So again, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And Bill Hicks was hardly alone in doing a stand-up bit even about the story. There were other comedians who made jokes about the same Judas Priest headline story because, it was a big news story that was just inherently absurd. And you would see late show TV hosts and other stand-up comedians go for topical material like that. And the audiences laughed because by that point, the public wasn't really buying the satanic panic crap anymore. They're kind of burnt out on it. Well, you can take everything in the long rant I've just said so far as a preamble to getting to one of the latest accusations of stupidity from Christians. It's something that idiot Christian trolls on social media still post. They post it regularly. They post it particularly while tagging one of the Church of Satan channels, I've noticed. And what they post is the following. As you can see from this screenshot, the highest degree in the Church of Satan is MAGA. That's it. That's the whole argument. If you ask them to clarify, they'll just smugly say, well, see, it speaks for itself, and you can't fool me. Checkmate, Satanists. You've been exposed. We win. The Christians win. Why do so many of these Christian trolls think this is a win? What point do they think they're trying to make? I mean, what they're posting, is that in and of itself true? Well, it's true that there is a hierarchy within the Church of Satan in terms of rank, and I'm going to try to quickly explain this. It's all explained on the hierarchy page on churchofsatan.com, so you can fast forward to the next part if you're a Church of Satan member who already knows all this stuff I'm about to say. But degrees of membership in the Church of Satan are 0 through 5. Registered membership is degree 0, active membership degree 1, and then everything from 1 upward is considered active membership. Witch or warlock is degree 2, witch being female, warlock being male. Degree 3 and above is the priesthood, so priest or priestess for degree 3, magister or magistra for degree 4. And although there have not been too many members of degree 5 in the history of the Church of Satan, it is there. Magus for male and M.A.G.A for female. This is all explained again on the hierarchy page of churchofsatan.com. And by the way, these are not initiatory positions. The Church of Satan is not an initiatory organization. So what I mean is you don't fill out an application to be a warlock or, be a priest after you are a warlock and take an exam or whatever. It's not like the Boy Scouts. These are titled granted by the organization to members based on observed merit. And as I've said before, there is no shame in joining the Church of Satan as just a plain old registered member and staying there. There are lots of Satanists who do that. You are under no obligation to be active and out of the closet as a Satanist in any way. You are under no obligation to meet or even talk to fellow Church of Satan members. Satanism is not a congregational religion, so, we do have group rituals, and I do encourage Satanists to get involved in them, but again, it's not a requirement. This isn't a religion where we're required to gather in a building every Sunday, Also, to be clear, these are not clerical positions of authority that somehow dictate Satanism itself to you as a Satanist. I am a magister of the Church of Satan, it's kind of like a bishop, but that doesn't mean I am your pastor to tell you what to do with your life as a Satanist, or that I have a different opinion on some topic, and it conflicts with what a priestess says. It's not like I'm correct because I have a higher rank. No, that's not how Satanism works. As a Satanist, you are your own God. You don't serve me. You don't serve the high priest. You serve you. You serve yourself. Having said all of that, Satanism is still a religion that embraces meritocracy, not egalitarianism. And when you combine that with the practical needs of running an organization for Satanism, it shouldn't be any surprise why we have a hierarchy as an organization as a result. I can certainly give an explanation of Satanism when the media or a scholar is asking for it. I can tell them Satanism's take on a topic or this topic or how we view this philosophical thing. I can point out things that are not Satanism and articulate why not. I can tell fellow Satanists where to find this book or maybe what year this thing or that thing happened in Church of Satan history. I can legally conduct a satanic wedding for a Satanist couple. I can help you maybe with a satanic baptism or a satanic funeral. I've done those before. But again, I can't lead you by the hand and tell you how to go about your life practicing Satanism. So again, that's not how this works. Let's get back to talking about this degree 5, M.A.G.A or Magus. I've also heard M.A.G.A or Magus. I've heard both pronunciations, all of those. But anyway, some people assume that these 2 degrees are the same thing as being the organization's high priest and high priestess, but it's technically not quite the case. Being high priest or high priestess is for degree 4 and above. Somebody of degree 4 or degree 5 can be a high priest or high priestess. Of course, we only have one of each at most. And it's just that with our relatively short history, being founded in 1966, well, we haven't had too many high priests or high priestesses in our history. Anton LaVey, of course, was the original high priest, was also a magus. Magistra Blanche Barton was a high priestess. After that, she stepped down and named Peter H. Gilmore as high priest. He was named a magus. Magistra Blanche Barton then became Magistra Temple Rex Barton. It's a unique role. You can think of that as chairwoman. And Magistra Peggy Nadramia became high priestess and still leads the organization along with high priest Peter Gilmore. He, however, elevated her to M.A.G.A, M-A-G-A. So let's get back to this statement that Christian trolls keep making. The highest degree in the Church of Satan is called M.A.G.A. Well, again, Magus is equal in degree to that, so wouldn't it be more accurate to say that the highest degree in the Church of Satan is Magus or M.A.G.A, depending on whether the holder is male or female? But why do Christian trolls say this at all? Well, you see, the word M.A.G.A is spelled M-A-G-A, and these letters are the same initials as the slogan, Make America Great Again, which was the 2016 campaign slogan of United States President Donald Trump. Therefore, these Christians think that by merely stating this observation that they heard from somebody else, it means the Trump administration has something to do with Satanism. That's the implication. Now, some of you understandably may be thinking, Bill, I don't get this at all. Why would Christians be trying to associate President Trump with Satan? I mean, wouldn't equating Trump with Satan be some kind of a smear you would expect the left-wing people to do? I thought these hardcore Christians were supporters of President Trump. I thought that's how, American Christian fundamentalists vote. They just support whoever is Republican. Christian equals conservative equals Republican, right? Nope. No. This is a common misconception. You see, these are Christians who are so far right, they don't like President Trump. They think he's too left-wing. I have to laugh at the people who claim Trump is the choice of neo-Nazis. No, the neo-Nazis hate Trump. They hate that he supports Israel or that he came into office always in support of same-sex marriage and so on. And to be clear, the same kind of thing happens on the other political extreme. You see far left-wing groups like Antifa or communist groups, and conservatives see them and say, oh, well, they must vote Democrat, obviously. And the answer is no. Those kinds of left-wing extremists reject the Democrat Party. They see them as capitalists and so on. Now, I'm not going to tell any Satanist here how to vote. You can listen to the episode on politics, Satansplain episode number 5, for how politics fits into Satanism. There is no official political position as far as the Church of Satan is concerned. That's left up to individual members. I will say, though, that if you have a strong feeling against one of the 2 major political parties in the United States, and you're calling them the party of fascists or the party of commies, my suggestion is you may want to actually listen to the people of those actual extreme groups that I just listed and what they actually believe, because you may be surprised. Anyway, Sorry for yet another side rant here, but that's the argument from these MAGA is a satanic term people. They are Christian trolls, and you can never actually get them to articulate what they mean by this or to what extent. These simple-minded Christian zealots do not care. They say, MAGA is the name of the highest degree in Satanism, and I think that this has proved something. Well, this is such a stupid non-argument that at first I was thinking I shouldn't even bother mentioning it on Satansplain, or if I do, it'll be so quick. But since it comes up so often on social media, I figured, what the hell, let me stick it in a Satansplain episode. And with that, let me ask some questions to people who post this crap in our threads. So, to the people out there who show up on Church of Satan threads on social media and post the screenshot of our website's page stating that Magus and M.A.G.A are degree 5, let me see if I understand your argument here. You believe that President Trump and or his administration are somehow secretly involved in Satanism, and that because the Church of Satan's title for a female 5-degree holder is M.A.G.A, and the 2016 presidential campaign for Trump abbreviates to the same thing. So therefore, you believe Trump and or his administration went out of their way to select that satanic term and turn it into an acronym for a campaign slogan. Or I guess more accurately, not an acronym, but a backronym, as the slang term is called. You know, when you take an existing word and then create an acronym from it. All right. Why exactly do you believe the Trump campaign did all of this? And don't say, well, because they're satanic. No, that's just a circular argument, and it doesn't answer the question. You believe they went out of their way to take the MAGA title from the Church of Satan hierarchy. Well, if somebody like yourself was even able to figure this out, and therefore you think the connection is that obvious, then why would the campaign bother to go through all of that? You know, why wouldn't the campaign have simply gone with something else, which couldn't be detected so easily? For that matter, why would they use the female M.A.G.A term and not the equally high 5-degree term for males, Magus, especially given that Donald Trump is a man? Did you even read the screenshot you posted? Did you notice there are 2 different titles for degree 5, Magus or M.A.G.A, depending on whether the person is male or female? I'm guessing you were also unaware that there is only one M.A.G.A in the Church of Satan, and that the Church of Satan doesn't treat its hierarchy as an initiatory thing. But why would they use a title that's only given to one person and not any of the other countless words, metaphors, or phrases you would find in Church of Satan literature, which would perhaps be more apt for denoting some sort of agenda as opposed to a high priestess title? They could have easily made a backronym out of Magus, M-A-G-U-S. Let's say, Make a Great United States, Make America's Generation Unite Sovereignty. I mean, whatever, it's not hard to do. Can you present a slogan or other name which cannot be similarly associated with something from satanic literature after making initials or other word play? Or made to fit some other conspiracy theory you're frightened about and fighting against? I mean, a lot of you people post the phrase, Christ is King. You post that a lot. Okay, C-I-K, Christ is King. That's what the initials are, right? C-I-K. Well, I looked up C-I-K, and I found out that that also stands for cytokine-induced killer cells. Cytokine is used in stem cells. C-I-K can also stand for Central Index Key, which is what the government uses to identify people. So how do I know that when you post Christ is King, it's not a secret message for C-I-K, getting the government and the New World Order on to harvesting babies and satanic sacrifices for stem cells? You know, see, I can play this stupid game too. Do you have any evidence of the Trump campaign deliberately using this MAGA term and turning it into an acronym. Now, the screenshot itself is not evidence. That's, again, backward rationalizing. That's circular logic if you're trying to use that. Do you have evidence of the Trump campaign selectively using that for that reason? Who did it? When? And again, why? And also, again, what point are you trying to make with all of this? Do you believe that the Church of Satan as an organization endorses President Trump, despite the fact that the Church of Satan explicitly has no political position, leaving it up to individual members to decide? Also, how do you explain that some Church of Satan members are Americans who vote Democrat and, like many Democrats, even sometimes publicly and routinely condemn President Trump? Do you think they go out of their way to do that, not because they feel that way, like a lot of people do, but because they're trying to hide the fact they secretly support them? How do you justify all this? Do you have any answers to any of my questions? If your only responses are Bible verses or smug one-liners or other non-sequitur responses, then I'll just assume you stupidly bought into this idea you found in an online screenshot without realizing it's not a valid argument for anything. And that's because, I can only conclude, you're stupid. You're a moron who's devoid of critical thinking and a great example of why I would never want to be a Christian. Let's take a break. You are listening to Satansplain.
You are listening to Satansplain, real satanic talk with Church of Satan Magister Bill M. For questions, comments, and correspondence, send an email to bill@satansplain.com.
The Neutral Wisdom Podcast is a podcast dedicated to passing on knowledge and wisdom from a satanic perspective. Hosted by Satanist Robert Shirley, author of Neutral Wisdom, Contemplations of a Satanic Warlock. Join us as we challenge conventional wisdom and offer refreshing insights for those seeking deeper understanding and self-empowerment through a modern philosophy. Embrace your own authenticity and transformative potential. Join us wherever you get your podcasts or at neutralwisdom.ca. Ever forward.
Handmade, all-natural, botanical perfumes, soaps, and ceremonial incense, sculptures and jewelry to adorn yourself and your other altars. All this and more await you at moonandsunemporium.com. Ritual perfumes and other occult fine art luxuries, created and curated by me, Priestess, Sarah Josephine Clark, with tarot readings by Reverend Dr. Dylan Clark. moonandsunemporium.com.
Magister Bill M. here with Satansplain. Visit the main website for the show at satansplain.com. There you can find every Satansplain episode. You can also listen to Satansplain on Spotify, YouTube, Audible, and a host of other places. If you're on social media, please give Satansplain a like and a follow, or whatever the equivalent is on Facebook, X, and YouTube. Likewise, if you're listening now on YouTube, please don't forget to hit that like button for this episode. For all questions and correspondence, you can email me directly. The email address is bill@satansplain.com. And if you enjoy Satansplain and would like to support the show, please go to the show's page on Locals. Point your web browsers to satansplain.locals.com. You can sign up for Locals for free, but you can also additionally become a paid subscriber there. That is the best way you can support Satansplain. Though we also have a merch store. You can go to store.satansplain.com for that. And I thank you, as always, to all of you who support the show in one way or another. Speaking of satanic podcasts, just a quick news piece. A few weeks ago, I was interviewed for the Devil's Salon podcast. It was fun to be back and talking with those guys again. I think that should be airing sometime in August. I'll certainly be mentioning it on the usual Satansplain channels when it's available. And I want to finish off the show by talking about 3 recent celebrity deaths and my take on them as a Satanist. As I record this, Ozzy Osbourne passed away recently, and right after him, Hulk Hogan. And then after that, famous novelty musician Tom Lehrer died at the age of 97. So first of all, you'll see lots of people claim that celebrity deaths always come in threes. And I say this is just a silly subjective thing. As comedian George Carlin said in one of his books, no, death comes in ones. And to that, I'll add there are times it certainly does not come in threes. Your mind just compartmentalizes it like that, especially when you don't give a time limit to when the 3 deaths have to take place. Is it within 3 days, a week, a month? Not to mention how you define celebrity. You can probably find other people in the news who died if you look around. That sometimes happens when 2 celebrities die on the same day and one overshadows the other in the news. Farrah Fawcett and Michael Jackson come to mind. I remember when 2 of my favorite entertainers died, I think within a day of each other. Actor Carol O'Connor and blues legend John Lee Hooker. So anyway, my point is I don't believe in this death in threes superstition. Now, bringing this over to Satanism, I suppose one question Satanists might ask is, why would we care about celebrities at all? After all, these aren't people we personally knew. It's not like a family member or close friend dying. A Satanist might also argue, well, being famous doesn't make you a better person. A lot of these celebrities may be rich and famous, but they're inferior in a lot of ways. Satanists may argue, we already kind of knew about that for a while, but then especially seeing these actors use their Twitter accounts to post stupid crap kind of proved that. I also heard people, Satanists or otherwise, say, well, if I met this person, I would not act all starstruck and treat them like a god. No, I would just treat them as a normal person and talk to them like any other person. All right, I understand where people are coming from with all of those arguments, but I would like to offer some counter-arguments. A lot of spiritual religions tell us that idolatry is a sin. And as a Satanist, that does give me some pause for thought. Is there maybe something satanic to having an idol, as the person is called, in a slang sort of way? I mean, again, as Satanists, we are our own gods. My God is me, not my favorite actor or athlete or favorite musician. But let's stop and think about this for a little bit. There are lots of celebrities, of course, whom I don't care about, because I don't idolize them. Or rather, the other way around. I don't idolize them because I don't really care about them or their works. But there are other celebrities I do care about. And the reason for that is that there are people who have created or done things that I really enjoy. There are musicians, for example, who have created music, which in turn has really enriched my life. Maybe even changed my life sometimes. Their music has not only enriched my life by being entertaining, but by being something I feel connected with. Music has that kind of power. A lot of religionists don't like the fact that they have that kind of competition. Kind of going back to the Satanic Panic, I do think that's maybe was a lot of motivation for condemning one rock band or another. No, you're not supposed to be compassionate and idolize them. We want you to idolize our book's religion, and our figures. Anyway, so can sports or a movie or a book, can we feel connections with that? Yeah. It can be really emotionally engaging and moving and personally motivating. That's certainly different than somebody who is just famous, but, perhaps didn't have that kind of personal impact on you. Though even then, as a Satanist, I can certainly admire somebody to some degree who was the best in what they did. Like, a star athlete, even if it's not a sport I'm actually interested in. I can respect that from a meritocracy point. But getting back to celebrities and people like that whose works I personally do admire, and where I was thrilled to meet them in person. In most cases, I'm happy to say I've met a lot of my favorite musicians and comedians, got them to sign an autograph or take a photo with me. And to me, that autograph or that photo represents that special moment in time where, after years of them getting my deep and personal attention through their works, I got their attention. Our paths crossed, even if just briefly. Of course, this encounter and long love for their work doesn't make me friends with the person. There have been some times when I've met some band or comedian I really admired and maybe even had the opportunity to hang out with them and spend some time with them. And in some cases, that's been great. And in other cases, after about 20 minutes, I would find myself saying, I don't actually like this person as a person. I love them as an entertainer. But this is honestly not somebody I would want to hang out with regularly. Or I'd find myself thinking, this person, again, love his works, but he's kind of dense. Or, this comedian is actually kind of disconnected and rude. He's kind of a dick. I realize he's not obligated to talk to me at all, let alone be friendly to me, but I was kind of hoping to talk with him about this thing or this thing, and he doesn't really seem to care. And he doesn't let me complete a sentence. And I'm thankful for the opportunity, but I think I'm going to go now. Now, it could be the case that, you just met this celebrity in a bad mood that day. Everybody has bad moods. But I think this all gets into that cliche about separating the art from the artist. An idol is kind of by definition a fake facsimile, of something, if you will. And I think there is something to be said satanically about a person who designs this larger-than-life character that they essentially perform as an entertainer. Some people advise never meet your heroes. I don't completely agree with that, but I can kind of see where the sentiment comes from. Anyway, speaking of larger-than-life characters, there's Hulk Hogan. I don't have too much to say on him, really. I hear he was a Christian, and I don't really care one way or another about that. I'm not going to bash him just because he was a Christian. To be honest, I just never was really a wrestling fan. Some people are whining that he said something racist like 30 years ago. Again, don't know, don't care. But I do acknowledge he was a celebrity who developed this unique persona and larger-than-life character. And again, usually I like rock stars who've done that, stand-up comedians especially too. But Hulk Hogan is another entertainer who did that, and I'm somebody who grew up in the United States in the 1980s, so he was definitely a known icon and a household name. Magister Jim Mitchell of the Church of Satan gave an interesting talk at the Church of Satan's 50th celebrations. He had brought the action figure of himself that was manufactured, and he talked about how it came out and the satanic implications of having this character you made and being physically manifested in a literal physical idol of sorts. Now, let me move on to saying something about Ozzy Osbourne. Was Ozzy Osbourne a Satanist? No. And I'll say more about that in a minute. Did he do some things I don't like? Yeah. I'm an overall fan of his music. I've been listening to him since I was a teenager, but I'm not going to overlook the crooked things he and Sharon did, like attempting to re-record the bass and drums of his first two albums, screwing over Bob Daisley, Sharon sending a fax to Bill Ward for the first Ozfest reunions to say his services are not required. I could go on and on with my gripes about the Osbournes, but I'm not going to do that. This is the time or place for that. I do, however, want to say a couple of things. When Ozzy died, I was kind of amused to see so many Christians praising him. And I'm not saying that if you're a Christian and you like Ozzy's music, you're somehow a hypocrite. No, but what I do find ironic about watching so many Christians lament Ozzy Osbourne is that, you see, I actually remember the 1980s Satanic Panic. And if you are not old enough to have lived through that, believe me when I say evangelical Christians had really, really made Ozzy Osbourne out to be the Antichrist. And again, if you didn't live through that era yourself, I don't think you'll ever get the full picture of Ozzy's reputation in that zeitgeist. If you listened to Ozzy Osbourne, if you had one of his albums, you were considered a bad person. It was a gateway to devil worship and sacrificing animals. And People would actually repeat these rumors they heard. Like, oh, I heard Ozzy Osbourne kills chickens on stage as part of his concerts, and he squirts the blood out into the audience, and this and that. And by the way, I am glad Ozzy got to outlive televangelist Jimmy Swaggart, particular one who had lied about him and was the subject for the song Miracle Man. So what changed between then and now? What changed to make the public no longer see Ozzy Osbourne as the Antichrist and the maker of suicide-inducing music and all that? Did the public just get smarter? Nah, people are just as dumb as they ever were. What changed is the public's perception of Ozzy thanks to reality TV. The TV show The Osbournes hit the air and became a hit. I think it was in the early 2000s. And to the public, especially the ones who weren't quite old enough to remember the Satanic Panic, or by then it was kind of a faded memory. Well, by then, Ozzy was not this devil worshiper. He was this lovable, old, bumbling, foul-mouthed father in California trying to make breakfast or deal with dogs shitting on the rug and so on. That just really shows us the power of television. Watch the 1989 Halloween special of Geraldo, the sensationalist talk show host who did that at the height of the Satanic Panic. And watch how Ozzy is dealt with there and compare that to the laughter of the show The Osbournes. It's like night and day. One final thing I want to say about Ozzy Osbourne and Christians. I've been seeing some people trying to defend Ozzy against the other Christians of the past by going so far as to say that his band Black Sabbath, you see, was a Christian rock band. So not only were they not a satanic band, but they were a definitively Christian band. And to support this argument, they'll point to songs with maybe overtly Christian lyrics, like Black Sabbath's song After Forever, or maybe songs like NIB or the song Black Sabbath. They'll point to these and say, see, these are not songs praising Satan. They got a bad reputation for that. They're songs trying to get people away from Satan. That makes them Christian rock songs. Ozzy was writing Christian rock. Well, the lyrics in those days were written by bassist Geezer Butler, not Ozzy. But anyway, Black Sabbath was not a Christian rock band. They were not doing these songs and wearing crosses to try to bring the word of Christ to the world. No. The original 4 members of Black Sabbath were 4 superstitious, blue-collared workers from the streets of Birmingham, England. 4 superstitious gray-shirt brummies who liked horror movies. Oh, sure, sometimes those superstitions manifested themselves in themes which, globally speaking, we might call Christian. But to therefore call Black Sabbath Christian rock is really stretching it. Now, to be fair, I realize why people make these claims about Black Sabbath being Christian. There are lots of fans of Black Sabbath who passionately love their music and have seen it get attacked by evangelical Christians, and naturally they want to point out the ignorance of those Christians who'd call their music satanic. But again, going so far as to call Black Sabbath a Christian rock band is stretching it. Not to mention you overlook some of their songs done in reaction to those evangelicals. Songs like Under the Sun, that's a Black Sabbath song. Some of those lyrics include, well, I don't want no preacher telling me about the God in the sky. No, I don't want no one to tell me where I'm going to go when I die, and so on. As far as Black Sabbath wearing crosses or having photos or artwork with crosses, personally, I've never looked at that and thought of Christianity. Yeah, I know. The cross is a Christian symbol. But in the context of Black Sabbath, to me, it never came across as a statement of religion. When I see Black Sabbath with their crosses, I don't think Christianity. I see those crosses and think of things like old gravestones and Gothic steeples or exorcisms and Bela Lugosi movies, medieval castles. So in other words, I think of spooky theatrics, not religion. So again, Black Sabbath was not a group of devil worshippers out to bring Satanism to the world, nor were they a quartet of... So again, Black Sabbath was not a group of devil worshippers out to bring Satanism to the world, nor were they a quartet on a holy mission to warn the world about the forces of evil. They were 4 superstitious blue-collared musicians from Birmingham. Well, I want to finish this episode of Satansplain with some words about Tom Lehrer, who also recently passed away. I'm going to read you a variant of a post I shared with some Church of Satan members on the day he died. Back in the early 2000s, I was interviewed for a zine by the Legion of Loki, which was a Church of Satan grotto at the time from St. Louis. And the interviewer noted that my passions as Bill M. seemed to be music, mathematics, and mirth. And I'd have to agree. It was kind of a revelation to me, seeing, the M in Bill M being related to these things. Music, mathematics, and mirth, or maybe instead mischief for the devil's mischief. But yeah, that's basically my unholy trinity. Though I'd say the man who was the true embodiment of those 3 entities was Tom Lehrer. Given that he was additionally in the Boston area and also an atheist, I used to sometimes joke that I should demand a paternity test. But I was first introduced to Tom Lehrer around the age of 4, as he had composed some very memorable songs for the 1970s PBS children's television show, The Electric Company. In the 1980s, one of the songs we sang in middle school chorus was Tom Lehrer's Pollution. In the 1990s, some friends had later introduced me to his works through the Dr. Demento 20th anniversary cassette tape compilations and the Tom Lehrer live album that was the year that was. And by the time I started the Devil's Mischief podcast in the early 2000s, I knew that Tom Lehrer novelty songs would definitely be in rotation. I didn't live too far away from Tom Lehrer around that time in Massachusetts. I even drove by his house on Sparks Street before. Didn't want to ring the doorbell. I mean, what the hell would I say? I did write a letter to him once. I never heard anything back, so never ended up having any correspondence with him or meeting him. I knew he was a private man. Oh well. Tying this back to Satanism, in my experience, Tom Lehrer's works are kind of like the movies you see in the Church of Satan suggested film list, in that they have a great appeal to a lot of Satanists, while often being hard to pinpoint why, let alone explain that to non-Satanists. I suppose you can pick things out, like maybe the musical styles of Gilbert and Sullivan or Tin Pan Alley that Tom Lehrer had bring to mind concepts like forgetfulness of past orthodoxies. And by virtue of not being rock music, maybe nonconformity. Comedy in and of itself, I would argue, is of course satanic. There are elements of explicit blasphemy as well with Tom Lehrer, like songs like The Vatican Rag. Also sexual taboos, at least they were taboos at the time, with songs like The Masochism Tango. I think there's also something to be said satanically just about a man who made a timeless legacy for himself in just a small number of years and then decidedly quit because he wanted to do something else with his life while the legacy continued. Well, whatever the reason, those of us Satanists who love Tom Lehrer, who loved his work, well, we loved his work. The booklet to the Remains of Tom Lehrer box set is an item I have actually kept on my satanic altar for the past couple of decades. I also have to say that one of my most precious gigs I've played as a musician was performing at the Black House as part of the Church of Satan's 50th anniversary celebrations that weekend. And of course, Tom Lehrer was on the set list. M.A.G.A managed to get a video of that. But to finish this show with one of my favorite interview quotes from Tom Lehrer, I find enough mystery in mathematics to satisfy my spiritual needs. Hail Tom Lehrer, thank you for listening, and until next time, hail Satan.
You have been listening to Satansplain. For more information about the show, visit the official website at satansplain.com. And for more information about Satanism itself, visit churchofsatan.com. This episode, copyright 2025, Magister Bill M.